Welcome back, everyone. This is our third and final session for our special education classes. I am joined by my fabulous colleague again, Leslie Lawson.
Hello, everybody.
Leslie looks nice and bright, and I'm like dark over here. Maybe I need to adjust my screen. Anyway, we're so happy to have you back. We got great feedback yesterday on your surveys. Thank you so much. That really helps us when we go to apply for more grant funding. And if you haven't completed the survey yet, please go ahead and do so. A couple of very quick reminders. We'll have you on mute. Please write any questions in the chat box. If you don't feel like asking a question publicly, please just private message myself or Leslie. And if you are Spanish speaking, please put it in the chat box or private message our interpreters, Anna Maria and Myrna, who did such a great job yesterday. Many thanks to them. So we're going to hold off on questions, like I said, until we get through the information, because we know there's a lot. We don't ever expect you to remember everything. Just remember that no question is silly. I sometimes have to ask the question 3 different times in 3 different ways in order to understand it. We hope to finish in about an hour. If we go over a little bit, please forgive us. I will send the slides and presentations, but just email me to let me know that you want them. Next slide, please. So it's so funny because Leslie, is this the right? Did you go to the right one? Is this what to do if you disagree?
I thought it was. Hang on just a minute and let me double check. Oh my
Okay.
God. That's
Oh,
the
it
one you
is. Okay.
sent me.
I don't know. Maybe I dreamt it. I don't know. Okay. Go ahead. My apologies. As Ryan would say, my bad. Okay. I guess because we're always saying it, I thought, God, did we do that yesterday?
Yeah, I guess we always like to start off with this.
Yeah, and we do, because some of you are new to this. So it's really important to remember that you have so many rights. You have to understand your rights, ask questions if you don't understand them, and that your loved one is entitled to that free and appropriate public education. So that IEP that we talked about, that individualized education plan, should be just for your child, and it's supposed to meet the needs of your child or your loved one. So just make sure that you understand those rights, and that the school, and this includes charter schools, you know, Harmony, Accelerated Learning, IDEA schools, you name it. If it's a charter school, they must follow IDEA. Just a gentle reminder, that stands for Individuals with Disabilities Act. So Leslie and I don't come up with these laws. This is federal law that we are explaining and clarifying for you. So you really have to read it and learn it and understand it. And when you do that, the art committee should automatically respect you because you're the parent or the caregiver. But I think there's even that little added respect when you walk in with the IDEA manual. They know that you have done your homework, that you are prepared, and that you are really taking this seriously and you know your rights. So we have listed the links, and it's great that it's in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. So it's great links for you, and make sure that you take a look at them so that you understand what your rights are.
So Judy, I was going to say something about charter schools.
Yes, ma'am.
Because charter schools are smaller and don't get the same funding that public schools get. They are required to follow the law, but sometimes it's harder to get the same type of services, you know, because they are smaller and have less money to work with. And another thing I was going to mention about the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, it is a law and there's a lot of black and white, but there's also a lot of gray area. They don't always define every little thing. So just so you know that there's not a definite answer to every question you're going to have, you know.
Yes, yes, very true. Very, very true. And I just see that I had forgotten to do the live transcription, so I'm doing that now. So yes, and you're right, Leslie. And you know, one of the things that we always tell families is that there's a lot of turnover in the schools. They're having a very hard time getting special education teachers and paraprofessionals. I believe that schools are doing the best they can, and we want parents to work collaboratively with the schools and to work together to meet the needs of your child. So the IEP, that individualized education program, that plan, that is what you discuss in your ARD meetings. And it is part of that federal legislation called the IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Please note that the purpose of that IDEA is to make sure that all children with disabilities have that free and appropriate education. It emphasizes special education and related services, and it's meeting those unique needs of your child. And they should be preparing you for that further education, employment, and independent living. And I realize that we talked about some of this yesterday, but it really bears repeating because we know that there is so much to learn. And that contract, that IEP, is between you and the school. And your role as the parent is to make sure that you understand it, make sure that it's in your native language.
Hey, Judy, I'm
Yes,
flipping
ma'am.
through the slides and it does look like the same thing we did yesterday. So I'm not really sure what's going on. So
So why don't you do this? It is doing, okay, so hold on one second, Leslie. Hold on, everyone. Let me stop recording.
I didn't sign. I didn't sign or I didn't check agree or disagree. Well, they could go back and check a box. I'm not saying they would do that, but I've heard of that happening. So make sure you let them know whether you're agreeing or disagreeing. If you don't understand what's happening in the ARD and they're not answering your questions about certain acronyms or, you know, what does this mean that my child's going to get 245 minutes of in-class support? You know, get them to explain it clearly. But if you don't feel like everything is clear, you don't want to agree to something that you don't understand. Yeah, and again, it's important to have a written statement reflected in the IEP. If there's no statement of disagreement, the committee may think you're agreeing with them.
Leslie, can I just add something real quick?
Yeah, go right ahead.
So I can't remember if it was Monday or Wednesday when this was brought up, but you know, I know sometimes that parents might feel rushed. Maybe it's taking longer to go through everything than the committee anticipated. So don't feel rushed to agree. It's okay to say, hey, I know that you're juggling a lot of different students. Why don't we reconvene this meeting so that everything can be discussed? Because you don't want to feel pressured to agree because you're feeling rushed and everything is moving too quickly for you.
Good point, Judy. And you know, if you're in the middle of an ARD meeting and you're not sure or you need a break, it's okay to take a break, take a bathroom break, go to the bathroom, go out in the hall and call somebody if you're not sure about something. You know, that's absolutely permitted. So anytime you do disagree, there's going to be a reconvene meeting, another meeting where you're going to try to come back together, bring new information, and try again to come to an agreement. We used to call it a 10-day recess ARD. That's the default, but it can be a longer time because, like, if you were in disagreement about the evaluation, you might not want to have the recess ARD until after the new evaluation is done. So that's something you can discuss. But anytime you disagree, there is a reconvene meeting where you come back together, try to make it work, you know. That's very helpful, especially if you didn't understand the ARD process and maybe you need time to go home and read that IDEA handbook or your procedural safeguards because you're not sure what's happening. Maybe you want to bring somebody back because you're not feeling comfortable about the decisions that are being made. So don't be scared to disagree. I know it's very intimidating to be sitting across the table from a whole group of people and they're the professionals, but you're the expert on your child. So if you're not feeling comfortable about something, you know, you shouldn't be agreeing. So that's really important. When you come back, well, actually at the first disagree ARD, if you feel like if you had someone come in and facilitate the ARD and kind of, they don't have an opinion, but they keep you on track with the agenda and things like that and keep things flowing smoothly. If it's a heated ARD meeting, they can kind of keep everybody calm. You can have a facilitated ARD. You can request that. If you're going to request a state facilitated ARD, that's where somebody from the Texas Education Agency, they send out a facilitator to your next reconvene meeting. You have to ask for that within 5 days. Let me see if we put that in here. So one thing else I wanted to mention about a facilitated IEP, some school districts have facilitators on staff, and that's something you can request. If you don't want to request the state facilitated meeting, that's another thing you can request. But all school districts are not required to do that, but if they do offer that, that has to be on their website, or they have to let you know about that. So let's say you had a disagree ARD, and then you came back together and you still couldn't come to an agreement. At that reconvene meeting, if you disagree again, the school will implement the IEP that they feel is the most appropriate unless you take the next step to resolve your disagreement. And that's your procedural safeguards. You can request mediation, you can file a complaint, or you can file for due process. If you do nothing, then they get to do what they feel is best or most appropriate. So a lot of parents call me and say, well, I disagreed. And I'm like, okay, well, what happened next? What'd you do next? Nothing. Well, then you got what they felt was appropriate. That's why it's so important to read your procedural safeguards, or in the IDEA handbook, what to do if you disagree. Sometimes you're in disagreement that things you shouldn't be in disagreement about, because maybe, like I said, the school, I've had a few calls about the child being school age and them telling the parent they have to keep the child at home until they finish the evaluation, which is totally wrong. So a lot of times you could look something like that up, and when you come to the reconvene ARD, you'd have the answer to show them. Or, you know, of course, you might want to communicate with them immediately and send them the information. So I know in the case I had a couple of weeks ago, is because the parent spoke a different language, I sent an email to the principal at the school and sent her all the information. I mean, I knew that was wrong, so I reached out to sped text and got it all in the chat, copied and pasted it. sent it to the principal for the parent, and the whole thing got resolved within a matter of days. So sometimes it's not really that you're in disagreement, it's just maybe somebody doesn't know all the appropriate procedures. So you've disagreed, you've had your 10-day or more recess meeting, and you still disagree. You have to do something if you want something different than what the school's proposed. If you do nothing, everything stays the same, or it stays with whatever the school wanted in that most recent IEP meeting. So there's something called stay put. Let's say you had a disagreement about placement, and your child was in a particular placement, and you were in disagreement. Within 5 days of your disagreement, you can invoke something called stay put, which means your child stays in the same setting they are currently in, or with the same services. You know, if they were trying to dismiss your child from special ed and you didn't agree with that. So there's something called stay put. But in order to invoke stay put, you must file for due process. It doesn't apply to mediation or complaints. So just because you file for due process doesn't mean you're going to have to go through that whole process. Anytime you file any of these, the complaint, mediation, or due process, the first thing the Texas Education Agency does is they get with the school district and they say, go have a resolution meeting with the family and see if you can work this out, which would be like a third meeting. But, and that's where most things get worked out, because it could be that the campus didn't know everything, or maybe they think you don't know your rights and don't think you're going to file any of these, and it's just easier for them to do what they want to do. So it's really important to know about stay put, and there's a whole section about this in the procedural safeguards. So it explains it clearly in there. Stay put is not going to apply if your child has significant behaviors that are putting others or themselves in danger. So just keep that in mind. Okay, that is it, Judy. It's a lot of information, and it's good that we finish early because we want to be able to answer your questions.
Right. And that's what we tried to do on this third session, is to just focus on what to do if you disagree, to review things that we discussed in the first two sessions, and then to answer any final questions. I shouldn't say final, just to answer any questions, because you can always reach out to us. You can always email us. You can, ask right now questions that you all might have. I know that it's a complicated process with disagreeing and stay put and everything that Leslie mentioned. So if you don't have questions, we're just going to start reviewing some of the things that I'd like to just repeat, because it never hurts.
A lot of times between the disagree art and the reconvene meeting, if you gather information and communicate with the school in those days, and I see this all the time, things get worked out. Maybe you're talking just to your campus, and so maybe you reach out to somebody at the district level, like the special education director, or the autism specialist, or somebody like that at a higher level. Because like we said, what happens, like when I was at the training at the Education Service Center way back when they came out with the autism supplement, all of the special ed directors and the behavior specialist, they were at those meetings hearing about this new autism supplement for the Texas IEPs. And then they go to that big meeting and then they go back and they train staff over time. So a lot of times new information doesn't always trickle down to the local campus. And, these people are teachers and they don't always know all of the laws and regulations. And so a lot of times if you communicate with them and provide them information that supports what you're wanting to happen, things get worked out.
Nicole, you had a question? If you want to unmute yourself, feel free.
Sorry.
No
This is
worries.
Nicole. I had originally sent you an email on Wednesday about me missing Monday and requesting a copy of, because I didn't know it was recorded. Does that mean that I have to send you 2 more emails for, I was present yesterday and today. Do I have to send you 2 more emails to be able to get these recordings as well?
No. I'll do it right. I'll do it. I'll make myself a note right now.
Okay. And then I didn't get a chance because I was very busy at work, just like today.
Don't you worry.
We did discuss some things about changing the case manager and so forth. What I wanted to ask, I don't know if this should be private or not, is that we're gonna do an emergency kind of art, I guess, because I'm requesting that next week. The art advocate that I hired is not going to be available, so I'm gonna have to go in alone. And my concern is they're not aware yet because I haven't disclosed it other than filing the police report. But today we go see my son's PCP. So I'm going to go based on her as to whether I should proceed with the CPS call. So you kind of get an idea where I'm going with this and the case manager being changed. So I wanted to get your recommendations on how that can be done without me having to tell the school directly or go to CPS about the situation. Because if they know about the situation, then they have leverage since they are the ones that hired that case manager.
Yeah.
So when it's legal like this, Nicole, it's really hard because we're not attorneys or
Right.
or really advocates. But I would definitely think you should reach out to Disability Rights Texas. They have attorneys and advocates on staff. When is your meeting?
Next week on Friday.
Okay. Yeah, I would definitely.
And they're free.
Okay.
Yeah, they're free. They have an online, if you email me or Judy.
I'll put it in the chat box.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
When you reach out to them, they can't take every case, but just give them the facts. And you can do it online or you can call them. If you call them, you'll probably have to wait for them to call you back. I would do it before the end of the week because they get together on Mondays and look at all the requests for help and make a decision on which cases they can help with on Mondays. So try to get it in before the end of this week. If there's any chance of abuse or neglect, it is the law that it has to be reported to CPS. So for instance, let's say a paraprofessional witnessed a teacher or somebody hurting a child, she is required by law to report that to CPS. She's not supposed to, she should report it to the principal too, but she's required to report it herself. And then once the principal knows about it, she's required too. So anybody that suspects abuse, neglect, or exploitation of a child, by law, they are required to report it to CPS. So for instance, if you take your child to your pediatrician and they suspect abuse, your pediatrician is required to report it to CPS also. That's just the law. So I don't know if that helps.
Okay, I was kind of waiting for that because I it's a very difficult situation. And as a parent, or not a parent, an adoptee or what have you, when another individual that's supposed to be protecting your child comes into play and your child finally confesses something and there's proof of it, it's very upsetting. And
Oh, it's terrible. It is your worst
yeah.
nightmare come true.
So I had to be level-headed and call different places around. I got a call back from the director of the ISD. She doesn't know either, only because I've been in the federal sector long enough to see all kinds of surprises. And I don't want to give them leverage, because at the end of the day, in order for a person to be hired with the school, you have, especially with the state, you have to go through in certain chains of command to be able to get hired. And so if she's liked by certain people, I don't want them to have leverage to cover up any tracks. But I did what I could, and today was the soonest that we can get with the PCP. So I'm going to talk to her. I'm gonna let her know about this conversation as well, and so forth, as everything's being tracked, and give her the final choice, because I did what I could. HPD said because the jurisdiction happened in school, it has to go with the school police report, which I did, and I have the case number. However, I just don't have a lot of weight on what police officers do versus HPD, where I have a lot of friends and stuff, and I can get insight and so forth, or the federal sector. But when it comes to the schools, I don't. So hence why CPS has been hanging by a thread, because you're also dealing with licenses. You know, at the end of the day, you know, things could be retracted, they can retaliate, they can, you know, this could be her license taken away, which I get it. Most people are saying, well, she hit your child or blah, blah, blah. But you still have to think about, you know, a person. You don't know if that person, she has access to my files, if she's going to come back and try to kill my family or myself. So all those things have to come into play. And I have to make sure that I consider that in the long run, because it could be someone that might want to do some harm later on if her license is taken away. And this is the reality of a human being.
Yeah, there's some other things you should do also. And if you can email me, because whatever school district is, they're going to have board policy on what to do when something like that happens. That's going to go through the board of directors of the school district. And then also there's a way to file a complaint specifically against an educator. And I'm going to have to look that up. But if you will email me and remind me, I'll look that up, and give you that information.
And I just put her email in the chat. We realize this is a horrifying time for you and your family. We know that, and I'm so sorry to hear your story. I just can't even imagine.
It almost feels like that mother gut was right, because I couldn't understand why these behaviors escalated at this particular school, and I gave them the benefit of the doubt. But after that, you know, there's only, kids don't really lie. It didn't take till the
they don't.
Till the 80s to finally do a proper investigation in Florida to actually test out these children that were abused under the age of 5, to finally come to the realization that they are allowed to testify in court for their own for their own things that happened. And at this point, I am trying to be level-headed, because at the end of the day, my son may have to complete elementary school there, or may not. That I know most of you are thinking, oh, take him out and put him in private school. Easier said than done when you
that's not that simple. Yeah.
When you have, most of you guys, I bet you a lot of you guys on this have family members, next of kin and so forth to take care of your child. Believe it or not, there's a lot of us veterans that don't have that. So,
and I was one of them, you know.
Exactly.
Another thing too, you could look into a school transfer within the district.
You know what's funny? I requested that because he went to a different school, same district, for PK3, PK4, but it was in the home school, you know, zone school. So they denied me. And I'm wondering now if they'll reconsider.
Yeah, and you may have to take it to the school board. So I'm going to send you the board policy if you let me know your school district and everything. And then I'm going to try to find the board policy of the chain of command, because I know it's very frustrating, but you do have to go through the whole policy chain of command thing, but I'll try to get that to you if you let me know about it.
Yes, ma'am. Give me a couple hours this afternoon and I will email you back. I took a screenshot and I'll get that to you.
Okay, great.
Yes, ma'am.
Other
Thank you.
questions, thoughts? Is this helpful? And Leslie, do you want to go to the slide that lists the survey? I put it in the chat box.
And I can't reiterate enough that, you know, a lot of times things break down because of communication in some cases, you know, so always try to work through it first, but it's really, I don't want anybody to be afraid to disagree at their IEP meeting, because, you know, if it's something really important and you disagree, I've seen great things happen because parents have been brave enough to disagree. And like I said, generally it gets worked out before you actually go through with completely through with due process. And mediation is a very parent-friendly choice, because what they do is they send an impartial person from Texas Education Agency and they put you in separate rooms and they go back and forth, you know, with you. So you're not most times you're not even in the same room. They come out and say, okay, what's your issue and what will it take? And then they kind of go back and forth and hopefully make you meet in the middle. So there's a lot of good ways to solve things, but it's good to know that there is an option to disagree and know what to do afterwards. I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling, but I can't stress that enough. But
Yeah.
I know how frustrating it can be. And, you know, you got to go with your gut as a parent. I know it was very hard for me when Cameron was, like I said, when he was moving from, we were at a different campus for PPCD, the early childhood program, because they didn't have it at our home campus. It was time for him to go to kindergarten, and our home campus for kindergarten, we had a very old school principal, who they didn't have life skills on the campus. So she was used to just sending all the kids that had disabilities to the other school down the road that had a life skills program. And that just wasn't my vision for Cameron. And so it was really hard for me to stand up against her. And of course, we always kept it civil. I did have to pull him out a couple of days and say, no, this isn't going to work. And then that's when I reached out to somebody at the district office. They sent somebody from the district to an ARD meeting, and we got supports and services in place for him to have what he needed to go to regular kindergarten. And then he never went to life skills at all through his elementary or middle school years, because, you know, we worked through it. He had good support. We had good modifications. I helped with the modifications until they knew what to do. So it was a big effort and it took a lot of work, but I think it was worth it for what my vision was for Cameron at that time.
And something I want to add too, I'll never forget when my son was in 9th grade.
Can't hear you, Judy.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
And I'll never forget when my son was in 9th grade and they had him all in general education classes. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is just not going to work. These classes are going to be way too big. The pace is going to be way too fast. And I had them redo the schedule twice until I felt comfortable. It was okay for the elective classes for him to be with the general education. I was okay with that. But when it came to, you know, English and math and sciences, he needed to be in those smaller co-teach classes that they had at the time. because I knew that was best for them. And I just kept emailing them and saying, nope, this isn't going to work. Nope, this isn't going to work. I also asked for a locker closest to the assistant principal who coordinated the special education services there. And that was really helpful too. So that, because lockers can be kind of a stressful time, you know, it's very noisy. Unfortunately, students with disabilities are targets of bullying. So I always made sure that he was close to a principal's office with his locker. Ms. Bowens, did you have a question or a comment? Okay, no problem. I saw that you had unmuted yourself and I wasn't sure. Any other questions, comments?
Always feel free to reach out to us. I know when I was first getting started, I didn't like to talk in front of anybody or ask questions in front of anybody. So feel free to reach out to Judy or myself.
Yes.
If you have any questions you want to talk about, you can email us, you can call us, and we'll try to help you or point you in the right direction.
And my apologies on the delay in sending out the recordings. It takes time to process. And I thought I had sent out a couple of them, but I see I missed a couple. So if I haven't sent it to you by the end of the day or tomorrow, please email me and I'll make sure that you get those recordings and the slide deck.
Also wanted to say, and I'm sure you'll get an email about it, but in January, we're going to have a big conference.
Yes.
We hadn't been able to have one in a few years due to COVID. And I encourage you guys to come. We have breakout classes of different topics that you can go to. And then we have a big resource fair, and it's really a great event, and it's a free event.
The date is going to be January 21st. January 21st. And the conference, I want to say, is going to be in the Katy area, but don't quote me.
I believe that's right. Well, we usually would have it at the Beltway and I-10 at that community.
HCC, but it was the scheduling conflict. So now we're going to be in the Katy area. So you'll be getting information on that. And we'll be having some classes in the spring that we're going to have different topics that talk about present levels of academic performance, that talk about all sorts of things. And so be on the lookout for those as well. And if there isn't, hi, Elizabeth. You're just finishing up. So I'll go ahead and send you the slides and the recording once it's available, okay?
Okay.
All right, yeah, sorry, we're just finishing up.
Oh, okay. So it was a 1 or 12?
At 12.
Oh my God, I thought it says a 1.
No, I'm so sorry.
Oh my goodness. I lost the from
That's
yesterday.
okay. I'll send you the slides and the recording, not to worry.
Okay, and tomorrow is another one, right?
No, this was the last one.
Oh, this is the last one.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Wow.
no worries. And you can always email us.
Okay.
And but yeah.
Maybe do the spring.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll be having classes in the spring as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you all so much for joining.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Have a great day.
Thanks,
too, bye.
everybody.